my channel. Today I thought I'd share with you how I named my little boy. He is called Tommy Robert, or Thomas Robert as he is registered, but I thought I'd share with you how we came to pick his name. So when I was pregnant, I decided that we wouldn't find out whether we were having a boy or a girl, mainly because I didn't want to have any disappointment. I kind of was leaning towards the idea of having a girl, and I didn't want to find out I was having a boy and feel any sort of disappointment. Obviously it turned out well, because if I'd found out I was having a boy and felt some disappointment there, I would have been gutted. So we didn't find out. Obviously that means we needed to have 2 lists of names, possible names for our little baby. It was hard to find time to pick names because we were both working full time. Keith was working on the road at the time, so we'd come home late from work, and then it's difficult to think of the names. Sometimes I read a book and names in the book, and then other times I just came up with the names. Anyway, I started to make a little list of names myself, and then I would run them past Keith. And a lot of them he would say, "Oh no, I know someone who's got a child called that," and don't really like that name. We were completely different when it came to name choices. I like something that's a bit different and unique without being too weird. And Keith likes very traditional names, and he will say, "Oh, I've known, what about the name?" And then he would say something like, "What about such and such a name? I've known quite a few people with that name and they've all been nice people." And a lot of the names he was saying were more kind of people my age and older, and you just wouldn't imagine calling a baby that. Obviously those people were babies once when they were called that, but yeah, we were completely different when it came to name choices. So that made it really, really difficult. Obviously not knowing whether we were having a boy or girl meant that we had to kind of think about the girls' names and the boys' names without, if we were just able to focus on one gender, it might have made it a bit easier. So I was making this list, but a lot of them were just getting completely thrown out because Keith knew someone with that name, or that they had a child with that name, someone close to him, and then I had my cousin's children with that name, and it just wasn't working. But we both picked middle names. So Keith wanted to have Robert for our little boy's name, and I wanted to have Anne for a little girl's name. So Robert is from Keith's side of the family. Keith's middle name is Robert, and that comes from his mum's side of the family, and there's quite a few Roberts or Bobs in the family. And I think if Keith was the first person in his family to have a child, he may have wanted to call them Robert or Bobby, but he wasn't. He's got a nephew called Bobby, and so that obviously that's where that name's gone now. But he wanted Robert as a middle name, but I was happy with that. I don't know how I would have felt had he wanted it as a first name, because I'm not really into those traditions. I quite like the idea of family names as middle names, but I wasn't really into my dad, my granddad, going down in the line all called this name. We had to kind of follow on that. But I was quite happy for it as a middle name. And then I wanted Anne, and Anne is my middle name and my mum's middle name, and I'm not too sure where it goes from there, but I kind of just thought it would be nice to pass that name on to our child. So that would be my child, my name, and my mum's middle name. So middle names were completely sorted. We just had to come up with the first name then. One of the names that Keith came up with for a girl was Lily, and he asked me if I liked it, and I thought it was quite nice. It's quite pretty, and you don't meet that many Lilies, so I was quite happy with that. But then I put it with the middle name, so it would have been Lillian, and I just didn't like it. It would have been too close to Lillian, and I didn't want our child to be called Lillian. So that was an absolute no-no. If it was going to go with Anne, it couldn't be Lily. But that was kind of the only name for a girl that we came up with in agreement. But obviously it was completely thrown out then, and so we were back to square one with the girl's name. For the boys' names, I had come across a name in a blog post that I quite liked, and I thought that's a bit different, and yeah, I quite liked it. It was not a name that I'd heard of before, and I thought it was worth maybe exploring, seeing what Keith thought about it, so it went on my list. I asked him about it, and instantly he said, oh, do you mean like, and he said someone's name, and I hadn't even thought of it like that. Now, those people who are of the same faith as us will know what he said when you hear the name. The name was Ezra, and we used to have a president of our church called Ezra Taft Benson, who has since died. This is many years ago, but it is the only time we've ever heard of the name from, you know, this name Ezra. And that was the first thing he said, and as soon as he said it, my heart sunk. I thought, oh, I can't use it because everyone in our church is going to think the same thing. Oh, do you mean like Ezra Taft Benson? Anyway, I did quite like it still, and Keith said he was kind of warming to it, and I thought I would share it with a few other people, see what they thought. So I said it to a few friends from our church, asked them what they thought, because I wanted to get their reaction, to see whether they thought, oh yeah, it seems a bit odd to use that name. But they seemed to like it. So because of that, it started to kind of grow on me. I quite liked this name in the end, and it was the only name that both of us had agreed to, that had any sort of agreement to, and we both liked. So I was really, really warming to this name. You know, it was a bit different, it was unusual, without being too weird, and even though it was the same name as this president in our church, that president no longer lived. It was a lot of years ago, and who cares really? You know, it's one person, people will get over it. You know, they might hear it and think, oh, like Ezra Taft Benson, but they'll get over it after a very short time. And so that was really, really growing on me, and because of that I really felt like we were having a boy, because it was the only name that we had kind of come into agreement with, that we hadn't thrown out off our list. And so I really felt like this baby that I was carrying was a boy, because the only name we found is for a boy. I guess we hadn't fully agreed on the name. We weren't going to do that until our baby was born. I wanted to see our baby. I think Keith felt the same. We wanted to see our baby in the flesh before naming them, and deciding on that name, because we wanted to call them that name and see if it suited them, if we felt right about it once they were born. So we hadn't fully agreed on it, although I was kind of really warming to it, and I really felt like we'd picked the name, and I felt, well, Ezra Robert works well as well, so I felt like we found the name for our baby. Then 4 weeks before I was due, someone we know had their baby. They were due 4 weeks before me, and they had their baby on their due date. They also had a boy. I think they knew they were having a boy already, and I didn't know the name straight away, but I was being nosy on their Facebook, and I noticed that someone had commented and said, oh, I love the name Ezra, but they hadn't said that the name was Ezra. It was just someone's comment, and I thought, oh, they named their child Ezra, and my heart just instantly sank that we'd picked this name, or kind of picked this name, and they had now named their child Ezra. So I was kind of like having a bit more of a nosy to see if it actually was Ezra, and it did turn out that they had called their baby Ezra. And this is someone at our church as well, someone we were going to see every single Sunday, and I felt like we couldn't just turn up and say our baby's called Ezra as well, because it was just too close for comfort. Now it turns out they have moved now, and we did know that they would move eventually, but I just felt like it was just too close to then say we've also called our baby Ezra. We were having our baby 4 or 5 weeks later, and it wasn't like it was another Robert or another Joshua or something like that. This was an unusual name, something you didn't really hear of, and it just didn't feel right. So I was distraught that our name had gone, the only name we'd actually found that we were both happy with. But at that point I thought, well, maybe I'm having a girl then. If this name that we picked out has been taken by someone else, maybe we are having a girl after all. Well, we didn't come up with any more names after that. We did bounce around a few names, but nothing really set in stone until our baby was born. And then he was born. I had a bit of a traumatic labour and birth, And people kept asking us if we got a name for the baby, but all I could think about was trying to get some sleep, trying to feed this baby, trying to get comfortable, trying not to hurt. And I just wanted to tell people to shut up and stop asking me about this name for this baby. This baby's called Baby, and that's what it's going to stay like for the next few days at least. I'm not even going to consider thinking about it. I had too many other things to think about, you know. I was still, it was not at the top of my list trying to name my baby. I just wanted to get over this labour and to get home and not think about that. But we did bounce around a few names. We came up with a few. We said Max, we called him that for half a day, and I felt like, oh, that really stuck with me for a little while. And then Keith said, no, it doesn't suit him. I'm not happy with it. And we did try a few other names. I kind of went back to some of the names I'd thought of before. I said, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And it just wasn't happening. We are rubbish at naming anyone. We'd struggle to name a pet. We are just so rubbish, and it just feels like such a huge responsibility to name someone that's going to keep that name for the rest of their life, hopefully. And that is a huge responsibility just to get that right. And we struggled with that. We are absolutely rubbish at picking names. Heaven forbid we have another child and we have to name them as well. They'll just get called baby number 2. But we obviously had to find a name. Then I kind of came up with the idea of naming Tommy after my granddad, or our baby, should I say, because at this point he still didn't have a name. And I thought, well, what about naming him after my granddad? It just came to me one day. Then my dad had told me that he'd seen my grandma, and she kind of made a comment to the fact that this was the oldest child of the oldest child of the oldest child. So Tommy is my oldest child, I'm my dad's oldest child, and my dad is my grandma's oldest child. And she kind of made a comment to that. And when she said that, I thought it's quite fitting that we name my baby after my granddad. My granddad was an only child, so he obviously was the oldest as well. And I just thought it's quite fitting. And I never wanted to name my child after someone in the family, you know, their first name. I never wanted to do that. I didn't mind doing something that kind of picked out someone's name. Like, I thought about the idea of naming our child Drew, because my dad's middle name is Andrew, and that is a family name. I think his granddad was called Andrew, and I think it goes back from there. So that was kind of an idea that we would call him Drew after Andrew, but they wouldn't be called Andrew. But Keith wasn't so keen on the name, so we didn't go with that one. And then I said to him, what do you think about Tommy? And we kind of ummed and ahed about it. And then one day, after we got out of hospital, he said, do you like the name? And I went, it's alright. I wouldn't necessarily choose the name. Like, I wouldn't necessarily choose Thomas as a name. I am purely choosing it because it was my granddad's name. So that made it really difficult, because he wanted me to just say, yes, I absolutely love the name, and it's my granddad's name. And so he could just say, well, let's just do it then. And I couldn't say that to him. I couldn't say I absolutely love the name. So we still ummed and ahed about it, and eventually, maybe by default, because we couldn't think of any other name, I don't know, but it did feel right to me to call him after my granddad. And that, it's not a terrible name, and calling him Tommy is a bit more different than Thomas. You don't get many Tommys now, and even though he is registered as Thomas, we only ever call him Tommy. In fact, when people call him Thomas, I wonder who they're talking about. And I hate the fact when I call the doctors, I have to call him Thomas, because he's not Thomas. He is Tommy to me. Absolutely Tommy, nothing else. I can't imagine ever calling him Thomas or even Tom. Obviously in the future he might want to call himself Tom or Thomas, but for now he is Tommy. So that is how we came up with his name. I think it chose him more than we chose the name, because we were absolutely rubbish at choosing names, even though we had kind of chosen one, but then it got pinched. But it worked out well, because Keith said after Tommy was born that he wasn't Ezra, it didn't suit him, I was still a bit of a daze at that point. I wasn't even thinking about names, but Keith felt like Ezra wasn't his name, it didn't suit him, he needed something a bit different than that. And everyone said he needs a strong name because he's such a big baby. He was a big baby and still is a big child now, and he needed something a bit stronger. Not necessarily than Ezra, we hadn't even mentioned the name Ezra at that point to the midwives, but Tommy, it suits him, it works well, and I am so pleased we went with it, even though I feel like it picked him more than we picked the name. But that's how he picked his name. It's a bit untraditional, it's very traditional actually. It's a bit different to how other people pick their names, and I always thought I'd pick a name because I liked it, not because it was a family name, but I do like it. Thomas wasn't my most favourite name, but I do like Tommy, and I like it for him. It really suits him, and I can't imagine calling him anything else now. Certainly can't imagine calling him Ezra. Definitely not. Definitely Tommy more than Ezra. So that's how we picked his name. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!